I'm like probably completely undiagnosed ADHD. I would run at a million miles an hour. But on a building site, things just make sense to me and I can focus.
Yeah.
So I kind of just fell into it and I guess fell in love with it.
G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. So we're back in the office today because we've got a special guest for you coming to us via Zoom. So look, this one's going to be a fantastic chat. This guest we've got on for you this afternoon is definitely shaking things up in a few areas that I'm really keen to get more involved in. He actually runs Sanctum Homes down in Victoria, and he's one of the co-founders of Builders Declare, which if you haven't heard about yet after this podcast, we want you signing up and getting involved. So massive shout out and welcome to Hamish from Sanctum Homes. How are you, mate?
Really good, mate. Thanks for having us on.
How's your day been?
Busy. I think we were having a chat earlier on saying that the last few days I've been back on the tools, which has been thoroughly enjoyable. I don't get to do it much these days. It's been a really great opportunity to bond with the team and just get involved with the team on site, because I'm probably much like yourself, just kind of flying in and out a few times a week and not really getting to have those real meaningful, conversations and working in with the team. So it's been great for me, and hopefully it's been great for the team as well.
It does get hard, eh? And like again, as builders, I know that's my big passion. And it is good to spend that time. I enjoy the banter. I like the banter that goes with being on site. It's always good fun.
I was saying this to the landscape gardener just before, that I love a bit of on-site banter, and it's certainly different when you try and have it over Zoom with your off-site team. It's just not the same.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about, because you're not just on the tools for any old reason. Like you're involved in something pretty big that's happening down in Melbourne. Tell us a little bit about how you've got involved in that and what it is.
So, along with running Sanctum Homes, I'm also one of the founding members of an organisation called Builders Declare. And I guess much like yourself, we're on a bit of on our own mission to try and lift the building industry, but specifically around building better homes, more from a sustainability and an environmental point of view. The other founding members are Simon from Sustainable Homes Melbourne, Jesse from G-Lux Builders. We've got someone from over Perth, Brian from iSmart Building, Michael Lim from Michael Lim Builders, Michael Murphy from Aligned, and Jerry Spencer from Positive Footprint. So between us, we come from sustainability from a whole bunch of different angles. It's not all passive house, which is what we specialise in. So it's a really great mix of knowledge and I guess motivation to build better homes.
So is that the whole purpose of Builders Declare? Because there's an Architects Declare as well in there. Like there's a bunch of architects that jumped on board and improving that side of things, and then you guys have done this to improve the actual education. Like you do webinars and podcasts and things, don't you, for Builders Declare as well?
Yeah, so there's an international declare movement. So there's a whole range of different insert sort of whatever part of the construction industry you're in, and then put a declare on the end of it. There's planners declare, there's designers declare, there's suppliers declare, there's a whole bunch of other ones. I guess we did see, I think it was the end of 2019, and it was quite timely when this all came out, because we, at that particular time, most of the east coast of Victoria was on fire. And we believe that it's due to global warming and climate change. And I guess the whole idea or the motivation behind these declared movements is just to try and be better. And given that construction is such a huge contributor to carbon, that we felt we had a responsibility to do something about it. And in the beginning, it was a bit of a slow uptake, because trying to get 7 busy builders together and try and actually get a direction was a bit challenging. But I think after 6 to 12 months, we kind of got into our groove, and now we've got a podcast called The Sustainable Builders Yak, which is hosted by Simon and Brian. I host the webinars. Michael Murphy helps me in the back end with them. And we're about to launch our website, which the whole idea is to have it as a resource hub for any builders or anyone in the trade. Anyone can access it, really. And it's
So
just a whole
I think
bunch of information.
that's what it is. It's education, like that.
Education.
Like I did my passive house certification towards the end of last year, and like you were warning me, like once you know this shit, you can't go back. And like I feel like everything in our industry, like to me, every like most people in the world live in a house, some sort of house, all different varying levels and sizes of houses and things. But I think us as builders, I believe we have a duty to make sure that we're constantly evolving and stepping up and learning new ways and new techniques. And I think in Australia especially, like everything is driven by dollars. And so I think we've ended up with this very low standard that without education, the general public and even the builders building the homes don't know any different. So I think it's fantastic what you're trying to do. Like one of the examples I try and say to people, because a lot of people ask me like what, like they saw I was doing my passive home thing, and like what's the differences, and like with my own team up here in Brisbane, because obviously there's a lot of different climates and things around the world, and everything works differently in different areas and all that stuff. But like just building wraps alone is a massive. Like you could have a whole week-long podcast on building wraps. And
we're actually we do actually have a podcast, The Sustainable Builders Yak, with Jesse Clark talking about the ProClimb systems. Like one thing that came to mind for, like, we have obviously a national construction code, and I'm sure you've talked about this before, but that code is the bare minimum. That's like one step of being illegal. Right, that's you stray from that, and you're actually breaking the law. So all these volume builders out there who are churning and burning these repeatable homes on a site here and a site there, and it doesn't really matter which way they're orientated, are just scraping across the line from a compliance point of view. Like you'd never buy a car that is just scraping through from a safety standards point of view. So why should we expect the same thing for a house? And I know, look, builders declare and passive house, like we need to treat them as two different things. Builders declare, we're kind of taking more of a holistic approach around like the buildings we build, the waste management. Robbie from Revival talks about, existing materials on site that we could be repurposing or reusing.
Oh man, that guy's insane. Like we visit him when we're down seeing you, and it like man, that is what he is doing is unbelievable. That warehouse is incredible.
Big shout out to Robbie. Every time I talk about Robbie, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about what he's doing for the industry. He's definitely a mover and shaker. But like passive house, I guess if we sort of talk about the direction that we've taken as a business, it's a voluntary international building standard which follows 5 key principles. Continuous insulation, high-performing windows, thermal bridge-free construction, air tightness, and mechanical ventilation, or in your climate, energy, that ERV, so energy recovery ventilation system. For me, as a builder, it's a really nice recipe to follow. All the homes that we build aren't trying to get a plaque on the wall, but we try and, as in certified passive house, but we're actually trying to use the same principles and approaches to all our projects. So we're running everything through the passive house planning package. So we're actually understanding the energy consumption of a home by using different wall build-ups or window types or insulation levels. So we're actually carrying that through in pre-construction all the way into construction. We're still documenting things with photos, and we're doing blower doors. So we're following that kind of nice recipe, but it is quite simple. And we know that these homes are going to be built well above our national construction code. So it was a
Yeah,
nice sort of
I don't think it's a hard one to be better than, mate. Like it shits me to tears. I always use a window installation as an example. Like windows are meant to be screwed in and packed behind the screws and things. And you walk into volume building jobs or a lot of carpenters jobs, and they're nailed in with 250 mil finishing nails, like a couple of C-brads every 600 mil. It's just terrible. But again, just going back to the building wrap, like I think the reason, because I feel that there's a lot of people in it, like a lot of builders and especially a lot of chippies and tradies that, and I was one of these guys, like you're taught a certain way. And unless you think outside the box or you have the initiative to go and do some study or talk to other people and learn these different things, like why I like to talk about building wrap is because like everyone throws some building wrap around a frame and thinks that they've done something good. And like you see the building wrap flapping around in the breeze and like not going all the way up to the top plate, and like just the simplest things can make a big difference. And then insulation, like everyone thinks they put some Anticom blanket on the roof and a bit of insulation in their walls and they're saving the world or building a better home. And let alone do they know that like insulation actually has a proper way to be installed. Like if you squash it too tightly, it doesn't work. If you pull it apart too much, it doesn't work. If you don't fill the gaps around windows and things like, and I actually don't think it takes much to start lifting your game and start that wheel turning. And like, I guess for me, I'm just sort of addicted to it now. Like once you start seeing the little improvements that those little things make, and then you want more knowledge and you want to do more and you want to learn more about different products and you talk to people like yourself, and it's good. Like we're delivering our clients a better product. Sorry to interrupt, guys, but we've got to thank our sponsors because without them, we can't keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So massive shout out to DPS Constructions, Quoties, Live Life Build, and 44 Gallon Films. Make sure you go and check those guys out, support them so that we can keep delivering you this incredible podcast.
far better. I mean, if you talk about insulation, and I do, I drive past 3 or 4 projects that come to mind on the way to one of our jobs at the moment. And, the brickies are putting their isolation paper up the wall as they go, and it's not taped together. And I guess if you understand how insulation's meant to work, it's meant to hold still air. And if you don't wrap it properly or tape it properly and you've got wind running through it, like the term's called wind washing. I like to use the analogy of if you're outside and you're wearing a jumper, you're probably going to be quite warm, but as soon as it starts to blow, as soon as it starts to get windy, that wind's going to come through that jumper. But if you put a Gore-Tex jacket over the top of it, there's your insulation and there's your building wrap. And I guess the beauty of the building wraps that we use is they're vapor open, so moisture can move through them, vapor can move through them. But the other bonus that I love, in particular today where we had a massive thunderstorm out of nowhere, I've got this project wrapped in these building wraps, and I had 2 leaks in the house. I've got no roof on. So from protecting that frame, even just during construction without having the roof on, I've had that roughed in for weeks and I haven't had the roof on, and the roof's going on in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
So there's a huge amount of benefit for all of it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, like, when you talk about those little, like, it's really not that hard. Like, most houses have insulation these days. Most buildings have some sort of building wrap. Like, that's a really easy place to start, isn't it? To deliver your clients a better home.
And you talk about like value for money. Like, yes, it's a bit more expensive than whacking some isolation on, and we wrap our roofs and our walls. It's an extra few grand, but the additional performance that you get out of wrapping a building really well is immeasurable. Like, it's just to perform so much better.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I think I've said to you, I've got a meeting next week with the Queensland representative for ProClimb. I'm pretty keen to learn more about it and the benefits and how it gets installed and all that sort of stuff. I just think it's a no-brainer to do something so simple and just to seal your home up better and use better product.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing the old bloody builder's wrap on there. So mate,
it's got perforations everywhere, and it actually allows moisture to come through it, like physically allows moisture to come through it.
Oh, mate, it drives me nuts. I have a like my thing with the boys all the time. Like, you should be wrapping your jobs up so that they're tight. Like, and like nothing shits me more when you drive around, you see sites and the paper's flapping in the wind, and like it's short here and there. It's just shit practice.
I often say to my team, my actually favorite part is when we wrap the buildings because everything's so neat and taped together. And it just sort of gives me this nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside, knowing that no moisture can get in there. The job can keep moving even if it starts raining. And if the team are taking that level of detail on something that's not going to be seen, that carries through to the rest of the project.
Because I'm pretty sure I've seen photos of your jobs on the Instagram where you're plastering and fitting out inside, and you still don't have a roof on.
So we're plastering on Tuesday, and I don't have a roof on.
Yeah, no, it's obviously incredible products, but obviously you're installing it incredibly well as well.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, that's, I don't want to talk dollars, but we're spending, thousands of dollars on wrapping these buildings really well, and that I guess feeds into the airtightness and all that kind of stuff for our projects. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is what people come to us for. They come to us for a certain level of performance. So I guess there is an expectation that they're going to be spending money on these types of things.
So, mate, tell us why you've taken this road. So, obviously the key to a successful business is following a path, having a purpose. Like you've managed to really nail your purpose and your drive and your passion into building business. Like, where's this all come from?
So I guess my journey into construction wasn't linear. I started out, like, I've got a Bachelor of Business in Marketing and Tourism, and I never thought that I'd get into trades. All my mates are trades, carpenters, sparkies, a bunch of them are builders now. I started labouring for a buddy of mine while I was at uni, and then I went overseas to the UK, and I was in Canada for 3 years, and I just started labouring for some builders over there. And I think you and I have talked about this before, but for the first time in my life, everything just made sense. Being on a building site, the way things went together, the sequencing of things, I found that I could just see how things went together and it made sense. And I mean, it's my head, I'm like probably completely undiagnosed ADHD. I run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But on a building site, things just make sense to me and I can focus.
Yeah.
So I kind of just fell into it and I guess fell in love with it. I've always had a passion for the outdoors. I've always loved snowboarding, mountain bike riding, camping when I was younger. My wife's actually an ecologist, so flora and fauna, environmental science. And while we were overseas, we spent a lot of time, hiking and snowboarding in Canada. And when I finally came home and decided that carpentry was the path that I wanted to take, I really wanted to focus on like the sustainability side. And I guess for a long time, we were calling ourselves a sustainable builder. But if I'm being honest with myself, we probably weren't doing anything other than, being mindful of, how much material we ordered and trying to separate waste at the time. It wasn't, we weren't really diving into like the sustainability side of it. And I guess this is when I met Sven from Maxa Design, who as well.
Yeah.
We happened to train at the CrossFit gym. We sat down one day for a coffee because he said he was always interested in, looking for good builders. At the time, we were doing a refurb at the gym. And we just got chatting and he said, "Oh, have you heard about Passive House?" And I think I went home that day and Googled it, not really knowing anything about it. Signed up for the course, and within 5 minutes of being in the class, I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It just, again, made so much sense to me that there was this recipe that you followed and there was definitely clear checkpoints along the way to reach a desired outcome. And
How
for
long ago
me,
was
that just
how long ago was that, mate? Because I didn't realize that's how you got into it. Like, how
yeah, it
long?
was probably 5 years ago. So
Yeah,
probably 2016, I think I did my passive house course.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and look, from there, I made the decision that that's what we wanted to pursue. We wanted to, double down and pivot the whole business towards high performance of passive house. And, for a long time, I was investing my own money, buying the good building wraps, and I was investing, money in the team to wrap those current projects in these building wraps. And I guess the great thing for the clients at the time is they were getting these really amazingly well wrapped buildings for no extra cost. Um, but I guess we needed the practice, and we needed to demonstrate that we had the ability to do these things. So I just always looked at it as an investment, and then slowly but surely we got a couple of projects under our belt, and you know that where we are at the moment is by design, right? Like we have a very clear focus where we want to take the business, so we really push the marketing towards passive house and high performance homes, and people now come to us, I guess, for that solution.
yeah. I think it's like, especially down your part of the world. I think it's a no brainer. Like, it's such a really good way to and it's all about the longevity of the home, isn't it? And the quality of the air and the lifestyle. Like, there's a lot more to it than just building a nice home.
Yep, yep, 100%. I mean, we could dive down the rabbit hole of passive house in different climates, and there's a part of me that agrees that it works, or it makes more sense in some climates than others. But I guess the only comment I'll make about it is that the science demonstrates that passive house can work in any climate. But at the end of the day, the clients are the ones that are driving the level of performance of the home. And if they want to have the cross ventilation and have passive solar in their home, then maybe passive house is not for them. But down here in Victoria, where we've got, it gets down to -2 here, but it's up to 46 in summer. 45 in summer. It kind of just makes sense.
Do you think people are very misled when it comes to sustainability and like new building products and all? Like, I feel like people, there's a lot of marketing that just gets thrown around so willy nilly, and like people think they put solar on their house or a battery in their house or some insulation in their house, and that, like, they're building a sustainable house or a water tank. Like, there is so much more to it, isn't it? Like, it's the way the products are sourced, it's what they're made from. It's like, is there chemicals involved? Like, are they sourced in a good way? Like, there's so much to it. Like, how they get transported, how they get wrapped. Like you said, reducing waste. Like,
Yep.
there is so many things that contribute to ultimately having a sustainable home.
And I guess it really comes down to what your definition of sustainability is as well. I mean, I know you and I had a chat about UPVC windows, and much like yourself, I'm all about learning, and I'm all about trying to be better. And think off the back of one of our chats, I did a bit more research into the windows that we were using. I've actually switched window suppliers now when we talk about UPVC, because there's another supplier in Victoria which uses up to 80% recycled material in their UPVC windows, and they're actually about to set up a recycling plant for end-of-life recycling. So, well, we could totally go down a rabbit hole here.
That's awesome, mate. It'd be good to get that contact off you.
Yeah, look, I guess this is the beauty about, I know you talk about it as well, having an open mind and being challenged, and, we don't all know the answers all the time. And I know there's certainly things in my business that I wanted to change. We kind of have this narrative this year of every single day, we're just trying to be a little bit better than we were the day before. And, if you sort of take a step back and look at that at the end of the year and go, holy shit, we've improved this much over the year by just making little changes every day. Just today, I was having a chat with a couple of my team about waste management, and we're sort of really trying to dial in how we can better manage the waste on site. And through chats with Mark from MBH and talking to him about how he does it, we've actually got a waste management company coming out on Monday to talk about how they can help us better manage our sites as well. So, there's a saying that I like to use: you don't have to get it perfect, you just got to get it started, right? So we've made the goal. We set a goal this year to be better at waste management, and I think it's going to be a continual journey.
I think that's another area that's got so much room for improvement. Like it blows my mind how some of these bigger waste companies haven't got on board yet and come up with a way of, I don't know, having bins that can have different materials in them, or like, I don't know. There has to be a way. Like I can't stand the waste on job sites. Like waste actually influences us now on the materials we use and who we buy them from, because like we've used so many materials, and especially when you get to fit off stage, like when you do your aircon, electrical and plumbing fit off, like you'll fill a 12-meter skip of cardboard and polystyrene and plastics. Like it's just so wasteful. And all that shit is for is so that you can get a product to the house that ends up with no scratches or blemishes on it or something. Like there has to be a better way. I always think, like, why can't you put your orders into the supplier and like they just package everything you need into sort of one box rather than all these different boxes? So yeah, there's got to be a way to improve on that.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. Internet's to my phone, so I've got a bit of a shaky internet connection here. Sorry, I'm better now. When we have storms here in Warrandyte, our internet connection gets a bit shaky, so I've just switched to hotspotting off my phone. My solar supplier now has requested that all his packaging, when it comes to on-site, doesn't have any plastic on it. And his motivation now is that if he starts making a noise about it, other people will start making a noise about it. And progressively, being a little bit better every day, the supplier might turn around and go, well, hang on, the consumers don't want plastic on their stuff, so let's stop putting plastic on it. So yeah. Hopefully we see it, because I agree with you, fit off, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I want to go back because just before in the conversation, you were saying how when you realized you wanted to become a carpenter and a builder, like you could see like things fell into place, you could get focused when you're on a job site, and I like that resonates with me, and I'm a big believer that most builders and trades get into this industry and this business because we're like, I don't know, I'm an indigo personality. I think a lot of trades and builders are like and I'm the same. I reckon if I went and got tested, I'd definitely have a few things wrong, like AHD and all those types of things. But building calms me down, and you're right, like sitting in the office, like I deal with anxiety a lot still. But the site does calm. Even now, going and visiting my teams on site, it's like my happy place. Like it can be chaos on a job site. There can be 5 different trades, and I just feel in my element. Like it all falls into place, and I can talk to them, and I can organise things, and I don't know. I just feel it's the type of people we are, and I found it really interesting that you said you get more focused when you're in that environment.
I love the chaos of like a really busy building site. I think I touched on before that we've been building a stand at the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, and we have a really small window of where we can of how long it can take us to build it. So I was in there on Sunday doing the set out and making sure that was all good to go. Everything's nicely color coded and marked, and we had a massive plan for the team the next day, and we had 11 people on a site that was 11 meters by 11 meters. And everyone was working, everyone was firing questions at me and Matt, who's the landscaper. And I came home and I was fucking pumped. We got so much work done. Like, it was chaos. We had 2 drop saws running. We had nail guns flying everywhere. Like, I'm in my element there. And I just find in that environment, I can make really quick decisions and the answer just comes to me. Whereas I kind of look around and, the other people are kind of second guessing themselves. And maybe it's easier for me to make the decision because I guess at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. But I just feel in those scenarios on site,
Does it change
it's the place that I feel comfortable.
Like, does that change? But when you get in the office, like I'm a very different person in the office to what I am on site. Like I'm in my element on site, on the phone, like finding solutions, and I get to the office and like I just get anxiety. The paperwork, the programs, using your computer, like it's not me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not bad on a computer. I find I work a lot better. I mean, this probably makes sense just talking about this now. I find a lot better when I've got like a whole series of deadlines set in front of me and I have to get them done.
Yeah,
If I'm doing a proposal or doing some costings or, working on something and it has a bit of an arbitrary finish date, like I'll do it the night before, but I'm
yeah,
110% in it the night before and I'll make sure that I get it done. So if I kind of find I have like these things backed up and I have like 2 or 3 weeks of like deadlines I have to meet, I love the office. But if it's, I guess, just medial stuff like I got a phone bill to pay or whatever, I got to do the scheduling, I don't enjoy it and I'm not efficient at it.
yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. Like I think that's my coping mechanism. Is I have it all written out. Like every day in my journal, I have written down like chase up these trades for this proposal, work on this proposal, like do this, check with the accounts manager, like where's this at, like check with Camille, where's this at. Like if I don't have that list, like if every day I have a list, I can handle my anxiety. But if I don't have a list, it's like I just waste time. Like I can sit in the office for hours and I just achieve nothing.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've started to like, if I know I've got, a few days in the office, I'm really trying to schedule my days so I'm busy, and I'll usually insert like a mountain bike ride or a workout in the garage or something like that, just to kind of, get out that sort of built pent up anxiety that I get from sitting in the office, and then I can come back rejuvenated and fresh, and smash out the afternoon.
Yeah, it's unreal. So, mate, tell us a little bit. Like, I wouldn't mind deep diving into like, so you're a Live Like Build Elevate member. We spoke the other day, and you said you were happy to talk about it. Like, we had our first ever live event like 3 weeks ago now, and it was friggin' insane. Like, I'm still floating from it. The community, the guys like yourself, like, it was an incredible weekend. But you said you've had a bit of a light bulb moment since that weekend.
I did. And I'm happy to talk about it. If we're sort of, fronting up and trying to be better. I went into the weekend thinking that I was going to live like Bill. And I actually thought that, I probably wasn't getting as much out of it at this point in time that I could have. And, I had a really great chat to Amelia about it. And I thought that maybe I could invest that money somewhere else. And maybe, I guess, develop myself more in other areas. But I realized after that weekend that I was the roadblock and I was the one that was stopping myself from hitting all those 1%ers that I know that my business needs. We market well. We have a clear vision. We've got plenty of work coming in. We're reasonably profitable. That I was like, oh, well, what am I getting out of this? But there's so many things in my business that I know that Live Like Build can contribute to make it better. Like we're all on a journey, right? And maybe Sanctum Homes is a little bit further on than some of the other businesses, but it still doesn't mean that we still can't learn and be better. And seeing that community for that week, of that weekend, and the collaboration and people sharing stories and like wanting to help each other, no matter if you do renovations or you're turning over, $10 million a year, like the community and the collaboration and what you can actually get out of the conversations, I was just like, fucking hell, what am I doing? Like, why would I leave this group where I still have so much to learn? And yeah, as I said, I had a pretty, emotional conversation with Amelia about it. And she may or may not have told you, but, I just walked away from that weekend just so much more motivated to be better and to invest myself and, just to show up and, like take it all in.
I think it's
Like kind of show,
one of our big goals with Live Like Build is like we don't want to have a start and an end. Like we really want to create that community, and we've succeeded. Like as you saw, like the shit that gets talked about in our Elevate group is just amazing, and it helps me like as well. Like I feel like we've created a safe place where just everybody is so confident to share stories and talk about emotions and finances and budgets and margins and like you name it. And it's not these free groups or Facebook pages where someone puts something out there and they get all these hundreds of just shit answers back, and it just feeds
Yep.
that old-fashioned industry that we're on a mission to change. But yeah, no, I was it's been good seeing your growth and how like it's those moments in life, I think, where you have those realizations that like fuck it like you said, you're the roadblock. You're like,
I was the robot.
man, like
Hands down, I admit that I was the one that was holding myself back. And, I think we touched on the phone the other day. I think sometimes, my anxiety kind of manifests itself into, I guess, this shield of confidence and potentially even arrogance that I put up. And I reckon that was what was stopping me from, I guess, just letting myself go and, look for all the little, nuggets of gold, that you talk about and little 1%ers.
do you mind talking about your anxiety, mate? Like I think it's a big thing in our industry. Like do you like when do you like how does it like I feel everybody gets anxiety in very, very different ways, and we all have like I've sort of found, and one of our guests we had on the podcast last week, like you've got to come up with some little coping mechanisms that just work for you, and what works for you might be very, very different for somebody else. Like, so how do you know it's coming on, and how do you deal with it?
So mine manifests physically. Like I actually get it in my arms, and I like a bit like tightness in the chest. It typically comes on. It's usually I can kind of stem it back to when I was in partnership years and years ago, and that turned to shit. And we had a like a 60 grand bill that we divvied up and paid off over 12 months. So finance has always been something that is a trigger for me. Sometimes it just creeps up out of nowhere and I don't know where it's come from. I find that exercise is a big coping mechanism for me. I guess that dopamine hit kind of resets me internally. Definitely talking about it. I have an incredible network of builders and friends and mentors that I talk to regularly. I reckon my wife often comments to me, goes, it blows her away like how many people I kind of lean in on when I am struggling with different things, and don't think that it's not a two-way sort of conversation I have with these people, because I don't just dump on them and take their advice and move on. It's definitely a two-way relationship, but I find that communicating is a big one for me, and getting it out rather than sort of keeping it all bunched up inside.
It's a very important one, isn't it? And it's something else I think is part of my mission, like just getting builders talking to each other. Like it's not the old school days where you ran to a bloke at the hardware and you tried to ask some questions and you just mate, fucking harden up, that's it, just deal with it. Or you have a conversation with someone that you've got a difficult client or you've lost money on a job and they're like, oh fuck, you'll make it up on the next one. Like like it's okay for builders and tradies to talk about issues, because every single one of us has dealt with the same shit. Like,
Yep.
and then take advice of each other. And like 9 times out of 10, the person you're talking to might have dealt with it completely differently. And like, you'll have that moment, you're like, oh, fuck, like, yeah, I should have done, like, if I'm going to do that next time, like, that's going to make that's my problem. I did that. Like,
Well, there's a classic saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, and sometimes actually just vocalizing it or communicating it to someone just gets it out, and then it's kind of out there, and you can problem solve that together. Back in the day when I was sort of going through a partnership breakup, like I just kept it all inside, and off the back of that, I started seeing a psychologist, and I've been seeing her since 2014, and every single time I see her, I learn something a little bit more about myself, and then I get another coping mechanism, and I've got these bag of tools now. Like, we use like a carpentry analogy. I've got a bag of tools, and I grab a tool out when, a specific tool out when I've, got a problem. And yeah, I seem to manage it pretty well. I was never been medicated. I've never turned to drugs or alcohol to try and calm it. It's just sort of something, to do with my personality, and at times my anxiety and, ADHD is what my fucking superpower is. And I can just get so much done, and I'm so passionate. I'm so motivated. But sometimes it does get a bit much. I'm like a pressure cooker sometimes.
yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Like, I think building is a very stressful environment, and like we wear so many hats. Like, as a builder, you're the accountant, the project manager, the site supervisor, the carpenter, like you, like everything. You're the bank. You're the. A lot of the time, you are the social worker. You're like you're everything, trying to manage so many
Counselor.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, marriage counselor. Yeah, like there's a lot of hats that come out when you become a builder, but it is about the way, like, being open enough to have those conversations with the people around you, and I guess not just other builders, like with your team, with your clients. Like, some of the conversations I have with my team now are amazing, and some of the conversations I have with my clients, like, and I've found the more open I am, and the about everything, learning, being a better builder, being a better husband, being a better partner, better father, like all those types of things, I'm attracting better clients. Like, I'm attracting people
Yep.
that are more like-minded like I am, and it's actually quite amazing how all that works.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And what I'm noticing in, the Live Life Build group is that, there's these kind of quieter people who are now really starting to talk and share their stories, and everyone else is sort of jumping on, and there's this like amazing encouragement that's going on. And you're starting to see, like, someone who might have been quiet before is now posting their, Friday wins and high-fiving everyone. And, like what you and Amelia are creating is, it's incredible. And like, circling back to, what we're talking about before, off the back of that weekend, I saw all of that, and there is no fucking way that I'll.
Yeah, no, mate, we don't want you to go anywhere. Like I said, Live Like Build's got huge, like, we've got massive plans, going to keep growing and growing. It's growing rapidly at the moment. Like, we mean it when we say, like, we are on, our purpose is to create a new residential building industry for custom, small, family run businesses, so that we can all have the sustainability, the profitability, the successful businesses, and, like, ultimately the freedom. Like, that's why we get into business, isn't it? Like, we want freedom, to have the lifestyles, I guess, that we deserve and that we aim for. So, mate, I want to know more about your little office you're sitting in there, mate. Every time I see you on Zooms, like, you got this, like, is it like a ply wall paneling or something that?
So this office, we used to have an office up the road, and during COVID, like a lot of people, we kind of looked to, I guess, consolidate some expenses and reduce our overheads, and we made the decision to work remotely. So our estimator works remotely, our pre-construction manager works remotely, and I had a shed up the back of the house, that just had a whole bunch of shit in it from the extension that we just finished. And I turned to my wife and I said, I reckon I should set up an office out the back there. And it's actually been the best thing I've ever done. I'm looking out as the sun's setting over there, and looking out over my veggie garden, the fruit trees, and the kids jump on the trampoline just outside my window here. But we wanted to try and use as many reclaimed materials as we can. I've got a sample window behind me here. All these shelves up here, bits of Oregon that we pulled off a job. My table here is like it's like a CLT. It's an HBE beam. It's a mass timber beam. All the flooring that's down here is just surplus flooring from when we did our house. The window is off a job. The door's off a job. And the OSB here is actually from our SIP supplier. He had a whole pile at his yard, and yeah, it's just a nice vibe.
Yeah, it's unreal, mate. I think we got a yard full of gear. Like, it's good. It makes me feel good reusing stuff. Like, I think some of my team still think I'm a bit of bloody hoarder when I keep saying, "Oh no, that's coming back to the shed." But like, it's great.
I'm total order. Total order.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Like, why throw it out? Like, we've we built like our whole veggie garden's built out of reclaimed products. The chook house is all reclaimed. The kids' cubby house, some of the fencing around my yard, like, and it looks fantastic. Like, everyone comes over and they comment on it. It's all from shit that would have gone in a hole in the ground.
Mate, the amount of, yeah, again, this is a whole other podcast. The amount of shit that we waste. The garden that we're working on at the Melbourne Flower and Garden Show, it's called Consciousness, and it's the relationship between a landscape and a building. But what we try to do in the landscaping is use all reclaimed materials. So we've got recycled reds. The decking material is from a demo that we completed a couple of weeks ago. All the subfloor material there is good 240 by 45 treated pine beams, which we've cut into 2.4 metre lengths, which we know we can reuse once we demolish it all. Like, the stuff that we throw out, it in Victoria, it just seems like, and it's probably everywhere else in Australia too, the easiest thing to do is just to bring in a 20-ton machine, put it in the back of a truck and put it in a fucking hole.
Yeah.
Like, has to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100%, mate. And my big thing is, like, with that, like, there's demolishing companies making millions and millions of dollars by doing exactly that, just turning up with a 20-tonner, smashing it down and putting it in a truck. And like, that is some of the best hardwood that you will ever have. Sure. And we won't have it again because they're not growing hardwood forest anymore. Like, it's all going to pine. Like, and it doesn't really take that much. Like, again, it all comes back to dollars, because to strip it by hand, you got to have some manual labor there and store it. But I know in our jobs, we salvage whatever we can. Like, some of the hardwood and like you see it at Robbie's place down there, like the timber that can get salvaged is amazing. And it only takes a little bit of thinking outside the box to see what you can use these other products for. Like, I see, like, Robbie's using some of the timber he pulls out to make joinery and seating, and like, it's insane. Picture framing, wall linings, like, it's unbelievable when you put a little bit of thought into it, you can reuse something as.
Well, we did a demo up the road. We were originally going to keep the whole frame, but it had been pretty severely damaged by termites, so we made the decision to pull it down. Some of that frame's gone to make a table, which is being used at the Flower and Garden Show. It's then getting auctioned off, and proceeds are going to a organisation. Part of this, a whole bunch of the timbers I'm actually using for feature battens in a spa area we're doing at my house. A whole trailer load went to one of my other clients' friend's house, so he can make tables out of it. Like, this material is beautiful. Like, it just needs someone with a little bit of time to denail it and a vision, and you can turn them into the most amazing bits of furniture. And, circling back to Robbie, like, his team of engineers can actually are willing to engineer reclaimed material so we don't have to, put a steel beam in and then do like a featured truss and not have it structural. Like
Yeah.
these timbers, which are strong as fuck, can actually be part of the new structure, and we need more of that.
Isn't it fucking stupid that, like, I couldn't, that blew my mind when we were talking to Robbie when we were down there. Like, how stupid is it that you have these hardwood timbers that have been in these buildings, some for over 100 years, and they've hardly moved, and yet because of insurances and liabilities, people refuse to design it into a new building because they don't know the strength or the grade or like all this bullshit. Like, I think that is incredible that he's put that team together, and some of the stuff he was showing us when we were down there, that they've been able to repurpose framing and build new exposed trusses and beams and things out of. Like, it's unbelievable. It should be getting done all the time. Like I don't know. Again, this could be a whole other podcast, but I feel there's something that needs to be done at a government level to,
Man,
if you're going to demolish something, a certain percentage of it has to be reused.
100%. I mean, the narrative that Robbie was saying at the app launch, and I know this has sort of all become the Robbie show now, but he's an amazing human.
So we're talking about Robbie from what's it, sustainable. What's he?
Yeah, Revival Sustainable Building Practices, okay. And he's launched a free app that anyone can download. Where if you're doing a demolition, or if you've got some leftover paint from a project, you can post it on this app, and his messaging is, you don't decide what's waste, your community does. And it's all for free. It's not transactional. It's basically just preventing these materials going into landfill. I forgot what I was about to say then, but yeah, the stuff that he's doing,
like percentage of the build should be salvaged.
Oh, yeah, at the app launch, he was saying we need to change the narrative from demolition plan to existing resources plan, and I can happily say that one of the interior designers that we use has changed on her demolition plan and has calling it an existing resources plan, and she is actively looking at the existing resources in the home and how we can repurpose them into features into like the new fit out that they're designing.
Yeah,
and that's one person's changed the way that they're viewing it. And it's back to what I was saying earlier on. Every single day we wake up and we're just a little bit better than the day before, and one person's made that decision on their plan. So that's incredible.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. We've got a couple of architects we do work with that haven't changed the naming of it, but like with it through doing our pack process now and going and doing the site investigations, like we're finding out like is it possible to save some framing? How much of it is there? And then, like, just as a couple of examples, like we've got a job coming up over the south side of Brisbane where we're going to use the recycled timber out of that project plus another project that I've got stored at home at the moment, and we're going to use it for all feature pergola and screening. And like the architect doesn't mind that like all the timber's all different sizes. It's going to have checkouts in it where there was braces. It might have some chunks out of it. They're going to celebrate it. We've got another few jobs where, like as you said, like the hardwood timber, like we've just run it through the thicknesser, arris the edges off, and we've made some beautiful like internal screenings, like feature screens in the house and things. Like there is so much that can be done, and really at the end of the day, it's not really taking that much more. Like it's the carpenters spending a few hours to pull some timber out, de-nail it, like dress it up, and like the way I think about it now is, like I mention this to every single client on when we're doing renovations, and I think actually, sorry to change around a little bit here, but one of the things that has probably changed my mind the most of this is doing the pack process, being involved through that design journey, and being able to bring up the conversations and say, hey, we've been to site. Like if we're demolishing that deck, there's 16 incredible hardwood joists there. Like, let's see what we can reuse them. Or we're pulling those walls out. Let's see what we can reuse it. And then it's almost like when you create that team through the pack process and everyone's on the same page. Like the designers and architects get excited because they're like, oh shit, are you willing to save that? Like, would you do that? And what can we do with it? And it starts this whole conversation. It just, one job leads to the next job and the next job, and it just gets better all the time. And
Yeah.
it's I believe it's adding so much value.
Yeah. And not only that, it tells an amazing story.
Yeah.
Like it becomes such a talking piece in a house. The project I was telling you about before, where we've had to pull down the existing hardwood frame, we're actually making a massive 2.4 by 1200 barn door out of the reclaimed hardwood timber. And I mean, this client, he's a busy man. He doesn't show his emotion much. But when we start talking about this door, his eyes light up.
Yeah.
And, he keeps talking about it and brings it up. And like, there's just this story, there's this narrative of, what is existing. And now we've built this beautiful new home, in the same location, but, it's still a nod to what was here before, and that we can reuse these materials and they shouldn't end up in landfill.
Yeah, mate. That, to me, that's sustainability. Another example. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there for people who are listening, because I think this is the sort of stuff that we all need to be thinking about. Like I said, as builders, we need to be taking, I guess, more authority when it comes to this sort of stuff. But mate, even like old concrete roof tiles, like smashing them up with retaining walls on site, like getting the Gabion steel cages and using the rubble to fill those cages. Like it looks unreal when it's finished, and it's something that would have gone in a truck and gone in a hole in the ground. Like there is so
We've got retaining walls in our Gaby rock walls in our place, and I think 80% of it is concrete that we jackhammered up from a path, and we've just faced the front of it with nice rocks. But if you actually pull a couple of the rocks away, it's all full of concrete.
yeah,
Like there's so many different uses for this stuff. Again, as Robbie says, we don't decide what's waste, the community does. And we, as builders, we're contributing so much to landfill and so much to waste that we definitely have a responsibility to be better when it comes to waste management.
Yeah, well, mate, that's why this podcast will level up. Like we want to level up all parts of the industry. But so, like we've talked heaps about sustainability and passive house and all those types of things, a little bit about anxiety. But mate, like as a builder, like what because most of our listeners are tradies and other builders and things, and as we've touched on, a lot of people deal with the same stuff. Like, what are some of the struggles you've had, like from even in your early days starting out, that maybe you didn't really know at the time, but like if you had your time again, you'd do differently, and maybe stop someone else from all the heartache that you've had to go through?
I'm going to answer that this way. If you're a young builder or a young tradesman starting out, get mentors. Get 1, get 2, get 3 mentors. You don't know everything. Trust me. I thought I did. And, I think you talk about the word vulnerability. I think that the moment that I became more vulnerable and really brought people in and listened to them and gave them space to tell me how they should be doing their job rather than me tell them how to do their job, my relationships with the trades changed overnight. I think I said it in a live life build thing that I was on, like on the sum of all the times that I fucked up. Embrace those times that you make mistakes and learn from them. Because if you're just making the same mistake again, it's not the other person, it's you that's doing the wrong thing. So make mistakes, that's what you're going to do, but learn from them and then grow.
It's what we have to do, eh? Like and I think it's funny, but like you've got to get past it. Like I think back and I was like, man, like people were telling me the same thing over and over again, and it took me so long to really get on board and try things. And I don't know what it is with humans, but I don't know. You've just got to get to that point. It's that saying, like if you don't want to help or you don't want to change, it doesn't matter what other people are telling you. Like you really have to want it and want it deep down and go for it. But mate, I think that's awesome advice. Like Braden, one of the guys we had on last week, Like he pretty much said the similar thing. He's like, if you're a young apprentice or whatever, like just stick to them like glue. Find some mentors, get a supervisor, even if they might not treat you the best way. Like just suck it all in, take it all up, and learn. Ask questions. Like it's valuable, isn't it? And like
100%.
I know I was the type of kid at school that I was just so afraid of putting my hand up. Like, and I think back now, like, fuck, like I wish there had been some times when I had to put my hand up. Like, I think that you can't be afraid to ask questions, can you?
I think you can't be afraid to ask questions, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't hide behind the mistakes, admit to them, admit to yourself if you made a mistake and learn from it. I think that's the really important piece, because for so long, in my early days when something fucked up on site, it was always someone else's fault.
Yeah, me too.
You can say, things don't happen to you, they happen because of you. And there's no truer words have been spoken. Like if you've made a mistake, own up to it and own it.
How good's it make you feel that when you, like I've had a couple of scenarios, even in the last couple of days where like something's come up. Like we had a job where there's not enough materials ordered, and like as soon as my supervisor mentioned it to me, I was like, fuck. Like now that you've said that, I know that I was meant to go back to that when I was doing the takeoff, and I did it. Like, but it just makes you feel good when you express that you're taking ownership for it. Like, look, don't try and hide it. Don't try and make excuses or put it back on someone else. Like, just bloody own up, and it's better for you. And moving forward, you'll be surprised how many things start falling into place when you take ownership of things.
One of the other bits of advice that I'll give, and this has been 100% learned from me, everyone's got stuff going on in their life. You don't know if they're going for a marriage breakup, you don't know if they've got anxiety, you don't know if they're in financial difficulties. If someone is not, behaving like you would expect them to be on site, don't fucking fly off the handle at them. Why don't you give them some space and ask how they're doing? Ask if they're okay. Ask if, ask if they want to have a chat. And I'm going to put my hand up if we're sort of, being vulnerable. The garden show 2 days ago, there was a bloke there who was just turned up and had his hands in his pockets, from day one. And towards the end of the day, we were going hard. And I basically turned around to the designer and said, that fucking guy needs to go home because he's driving me bananas. And I found out the next day that he was going through a marriage breakup. And I was kicking myself because I didn't give him space and I didn't ask him what's going on. Like I didn't give him the opportunity to express himself or tell me what was happening. I just immediately said, you're a fuckwit, you go home. That's what I was thinking. Give people space, give them an opportunity to talk, and if something's off, ask them.
Yeah, I think that's an important message, because you're exactly right. Like we never ever know. Like every single person in this world is dealing with some sort of shit, and sometimes it's just a simple question to see if they want to have a chat. I'm surprised you obviously didn't have a trademark shirt on, mate. You didn't want to start the conversation.
Actually, I did have a trademark shirt on, and I did post on Instagram that day and tag TX and trademark. So, yeah, like guilty. I wasn't being true to the shirt that I was wearing, because it's a good high vis shirt, because we needed to wear high vis in there.
Yeah. Well, mate, we'll start to wrap it up. Look, really appreciate you coming on. It's been a really good chat. And yeah, thanks so much for talking about your vulnerability and your anxiety and those sorts of things, because I believe if we all talk the way that we've just talked on this podcast, we're only going to help more people, and it goes a long way to my purpose of creating a new industry. So really, really appreciate your time and coming on board. So mate, just before you go, do you want to give us, talk us through the links and where people can find yourself, Builders Declare, all those types of things?
So you can find Sanctum Homes at www.yoursanctum.com.au. Our Instagram handle is Sanctum Homes. Builders Declare, I think I can say this on here now because I think by the time it comes out, we would have rebranded. Builders Declare is going to be rebranded as the Sustainable Builders Alliance, and we're going to be launching a new website very soon, and it will be thesba.com.au. So definitely check that out. But if for whatever reason, this podcast comes out before that's launched, you can follow us at Builders Declare Australia. All our webinars are on YouTube for Builders Declare. I host the webinar, and our podcast, The Sustainable Builders Yak, is on Spotify, and there's some incredible guests on there.
Yeah, no, mate, look, everyone check them out. Builders Declare, it's an incredible cause. The webinars, as Hamish said, some of the guests and the information they have on there, it just blows your mind. And it's like Hamish said to me before I did my passive house thing, but they're things that once you know, you can't unknow. So, get involved, and let's all start improving this industry, being more sustainable and working together. But look, as usual, if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button, send us some likes, shoot us some comments. And look, if you want to be on the podcast, give us a shout out, and we'll get in touch. So, Hamish, thanks, mate, for coming on board. And look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.